Good. Recording is on as well. Great. And 30 seconds to go, and then we start officially. Good. It's 16:02. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining for this next webinar here from COVID that we do together with AWS. I do have here with me Koen. Koen is an AWS solution architect at AWS, and he will do the majority of the presentation where we can learn from him what the latest is in regards of security in the Kubernetes world. My name is Marco Kündig, and I'm doing the welcome and the introduction so that you know what AWS, EKS, and Kubernetes really is. So let's go to the next slide, please. So the agenda that we have, a very short introduction from my side, a few slides on Kubernetes and EKS, and then Koen will have the majority of the slides where he will show AWS Guard Duty, runtime protection, and other security features that can help protect any application running on AWS workload. You are all muted, so you can't really say something, but you have the opportunity to use the chat, and I will monitor the chat in the background when Koen is talking, so that we can answer the answers via the chat interface. If you would like to speak, we can do that at the end of the session, where we can open the microphones after you have asked to do a voice question. Good, next slide, please. So for those of you that don't know Copit yet, Copit is an AWS Advanced Consulting partner. We have been around for roughly 7 years and do focus on AWS, containers, automation, cloud consulting, and IoT. We are around 30 people working in Switzerland and on a global base and help clients move to the AWS cloud. My name is Marco Kündig. I'm the CTO at Copit and have been around for 5 years here at Copit and have done quite a few things in my roughly 30 years of IT experience working in the IT industry. Good, next slide, please. Good. So as I only have a very few minutes to actually introduce you to what Kubernetes is, I have created a few slides. And for those of you that don't know, Kubernetes is a container orchestration solution. It really helps you to operate containers at scale on a container orchestration platform. So you containerize your application, you hand it over to Kubernetes, and Kubernetes runs it for you as a containerized image and integrates really well in the AWS ecosystem. Next slide, please. So how can you run containers on AWS? So AWS has two main services how you can run containers on AWS. One is the Elastic Container Service. So that has been around for roughly 10 years and is actually an AWS proprietary service that allows you to run containers very easily with very minimal overhead on AWS. You can execute that on EC2 or on Fargate, and you are up and running very quickly with ECR. If you have great requirements in terms of scalabilities, auto-scaling, security, and other things, and want to be agnostic, then probably you are going to look into Kubernetes. And Kubernetes actually is the Amazon Elastic Container Service for Kubernetes called EKS. And there we also have the option to run in Fargate mode, or you can run it in EC2 mode. Next slide, please. So in this session, we are going to look at AWS EKS. And the Elastic Kubernetes Service actually is a fully managed Kubernetes service from AWS that allows you to spin up a Kubernetes cluster that is fully managed from AWS in a couple of minutes. So basically, you get kubectl, the CLI to operate a Kubernetes cluster, access to a fully managed EKS cluster within probably 10-15 minutes until you have your first containers up and running on a Kubernetes cluster. And of course, it is highly available. It runs inside of a VPC so that you can run your containerized applications really secure in a secure manner on AWS. Next slide, please. And here you see the architecture, and that's a very simplified version of how a Kubernetes EKS runs on AWS. So you need to know that there are two parts. So you got the control plane, and the control plane is running in an EKS VPC that you don't see. That is fully managed from AWS. So all the required control plane services are fully managed from AWS, hidden away for you within that EKS VPC. So the only thing that you actually get is a URL, an API endpoint, and all the rest is fully managed. etcd and all the other services that are required to get a fully functional and highly secured Kubernetes control plane up and running. And then you got the left-hand side, and that's basically where your workload is running. And it is inside of your VPC. And that is great because then you can use all the VPC security features, the subnetting that you can do, the routing, the transit gateway integration, and all of these enterprise AWS features on the networking side inside of your own VPC. So you got there your worker nodes. These worker nodes spin up to containers, and depending on the CNI that you use, you have various integration possibilities into the VPC. By standard, each container gets an ENI, and you can fully secure with security groups these containers if you want to do so inside of your VPC. So it's very easy to build fully secured, highly available, and fully private Kubernetes clusters on EKS. Next slide, please. So here you see what we implement for clients. So when we do Kubernetes implementations on AWS, we always use EKS because that's a fantastic service. But we don't stop there. We integrate with secrets, with load balancers, with a lot of assistant layers like EBS and EFS and stuff like that, and have all these controllers implemented out of the box so that it becomes really easy for you to spin up an application on a fully managed Kubernetes cluster on AWS. Good, and the last slide, please. Here you see a couple of references that we have. We do have more customers, but these are the public references that we have published on our reference website that are using AWS EKS that we have implemented. So it's Berchi, it's Impego, it's Sly. All of them do have production workloads running on AWS EKS deployed from COVID. And if you want to read those, please go to the URL below. There you can see what they really have done. And that's it from my side. Over to you, Koen. Thank you so much for helping us running this webinar.
My pleasure, Marco. Thank you for your introduction. So before we
Koen, I have muted you. Sorry. Please unmute yourself.
Let me see. Yes, there we go. Thanks again, Marco. So my name is Koen van Blijderveen. I'm a principal security solutions architect with AWS based out of the Netherlands. And I'll be walking you through security on AWS specific to Kubernetes. And the key part here is Amazon Guard Duty, but I'll also cover a couple of other security services. So looking at the agenda, Marco already did a good introduction of Kubernetes on AWS. I'll add a little bit to that. And then we'll look at container security foundation. So what are the common things to protect? When we look at containerized workloads in general, and then we'll dive into Guard Duty, which is our threat detection service. And I'll also touch upon Amazon Detective and Amazon Inspector, which will help you do vulnerability management and also investigations of any security issues that you might encounter while running on AWS. And these are both integrated with EKS as a service. So they'll give you a lot of insights out of the box. Now, looking at containerized workloads in general, Gartner, a major analyst firm, for whoever is unfamiliar with Gartner, estimates that 90% of global organizations will be running containerized applications by 2026 in production environments. So this gives a bit of an overview on the scale as to where's the world heading in general when it comes to containers. So what is Amazon EKS? I think, Marco, you did a great job already in trying to explain this. But again, it runs vanilla Kubernetes, but in a managed fashion. We support four versions of Kubernetes. So whenever a new version comes out, we'll remain supporting the prior versions before that with a minimum of 4 to make sure you have time to update your cluster without interfering with any workloads that you're running. Again, it's a managed Kubernetes experience because anybody who has set up Kubernetes from scratch will know that it's not an easy feat to set up and operate. And this is what EKS makes a lot easier to do for you. And then when we look at AWS, why would you run Kubernetes on AWS? At the moment, 65% of organizations currently choose AWS to run their containerized workloads. So I think this says something about, the scale at which AWS currently operates. Now, when we look at container security foundations, there's a couple of things to keep in mind, right? The third things that our customers do when deploying containers, establish these foundational security controls. Our AWS services, the controls and the interactions are best employed on a foundation of the multi-account strategy, right? So we recommend customers to run multi-account architectures on AWS, and the main reason for this is to reduce blast radius, have separation of duties, and also deploy least privilege within the environment. We also have a security reference architecture that we publish, which is not specific to Kubernetes, but goes for all of the workloads that you might deploy on AWS, which will help you in what should this multi-account architecture look like. Second one is implement principle of least privilege. So AWS Identity and Access Management, which is integrated with EKS and Kubernetes, allows you to define what can the workloads running in my cluster do, but also any administrative privilege roles that you might have within your AWS environment. And these policies are written in JSON, they're very fine-grained, and you can define any control plane operation that either your workload can operate on your application's behalf or that your administrator can perform. And this brings us to the third one, is automate a lot of tasks to save time and reduce risk. So everything on AWS is operated by APIs. Even if you go to our management console, which is a web interface in the background, it triggers our APIs to perform any operation that you might want to do. And this can be launching a new pod. This can be setting up a new EKS cluster, all of those things. And this allows you to automate these tasks. Then the fourth one, and this hooks into the multi-account architecture that we touched upon, is establish a centralized logging account. Again, part of our security reference architecture, but we give you the tools to set up a dedicated security account. We'll talk a bit about our security services as well. They also support this multi-account model, including guard, duty, inspector, and detective. And in this centralized security account or separate logging account, we recommend you to collect all the logs for any security investigation that you might do. And then the fifth one, protect data in transit and at rest. We provide a lot of encryption services, again, integrated with a lot of our services. They provide encryption at rest to our key management service and integrated with our control plane, and also encryption in transit through our load balancers and a lot of the network security services that Marco touched upon earlier. And this ultimately comes down to apply security at all layers. So a defense in-depth model. Don't just protect things at the edge. I think this is especially in the cloud good best practice. Apply security everywhere that you can. So looking at the different modes of EKS, there's a couple of modes, and this comes back for anybody who's familiar with AWS. So we have a shared responsibility model, and in this shared responsibility model, there's different components that we take care of as AWS, and there's different components that you are responsible for as a customer. We also have this for EKS. So the first mode to operate EKS is with self-managed workers. This is the mode where you have the most things that you need to take care of. So if you run them on your own EC2 instances, you're responsible for everything in regards to the data plane. So this includes operating system patching, node scaling, things like that. The second mode is with a managed node group. And some of the responsibility shifts a little bit to AWS when you use managed worker nodes. When you use managed worker nodes, you run an EKS optimized machine image that AWS provides. EKS is responsible for building the best version of the AMIs when bugs or issues are reported, and we can publish a fix that then can be redeployed. If you do decide to run a custom machine image with the managed worker nodes, again, you're responsible for building these patches into that. And then the third option, and that's what Marco already touched upon, is Fargate. So EKS on AWS Fargate is fully managed worker node scaling, and all of the responsibility when it comes to the worker node and worker node security then shift to AWS. So yeah, if there are no customizations that require you to run otherwise, we would recommend to run EKS with Fargate. So how do you raise the bar on your container security posture? Two parts, integrate the AWS security services, and this is what we're going to specifically talk about in this presentation, and it also empower your DevSecOps teams to unify visibility and automate response, right? So the AWS security service will give you insights and enable your DevSecOps teams operating the workloads to see what's going on within the clusters from a security perspective. Now, looking at the services that we mentioned before, they all fall under our threat detection perspective. Again, AWS Detective makes it easier for you to analyze, investigate security issues. It works together with AWS Guard Duty and AWS Inspector. And Inspector, I'll get to Guard Duty the latest, but Inspector is a vulnerability scanning engine that runs. And then last but not least, Guard Duty is the threat detection service that brings this all together. Now, hooking that into the rest of our portfolio, you'll see here Guard Duty, Inspector on the left-hand side, together with Macy, which allows you to discover personal identifiable information. They all feed that into AWS Security Hub and also into Amazon Detective from Guard Duty and Inspector. And then we recently launched another feature, Security Lake, which we won't be covering today. But that basically helps simplify the setup of the centralized logging that you might be looking for. Okay, so looking at Amazon Guard Duty, what is it and what does it do? You'll see, again, it's a threat detection service. You activate it within your AWS account or accounts. Again, it supports multi-account architecture, so you can enable it either through the management account, or if you follow our best practices, you can set up a delegated administrator account from which you can control Guard Duty across all of the AWS accounts that are part of your organization. Then once enabled, Guard Duty starts consuming logging So by default, if you look at the foundation of guard duty, it starts ingesting CloudTrail, which is an API audit log of all the API calls within your AWS accounts. It starts ingesting VPC flow logs, which are network flow logs happening in your VPC. And it will also ingest DNS access logs. And from those, it can deduct with heuristics and machine learning algorithms if something weird is going on. You'll see here on the slide, on top of the basic functionality that Guard Duty offers, there are a couple of modules that you can enable. And one of them that we'll be focusing on today is for container workloads and specifically EKS protection. Okay, so if you look at EKS, what are the things that it supports? What can it help you with? If you enable the Guard Duty EKS protection, which is a separate module in Amazon Guard Duty, so after you've enabled Guard Duty, you still need to enable the Guard Duty EKS protection module. There's a couple of components that it will support. It will support the EKS audit function, so control plane function, which is AWS CloudTrail, Kubernetes-based API calls, but also the audit logs from Kubernetes itself will be ingested into Amazon Guard Duty. It will also monitor the Amazon EC2 nodes that your EKS cluster runs on. And then the second component that you separately can enable is the container runtime. And this is an agent-based detection system, and it will look at system events. So if we look at the finding types that Guard Duty has, specific to containers, specific to Kubernetes, there's policy-based findings. So these are, for example, an exposed dashboard, admin access to default service accounts, or whenever there's anonymous access granted anywhere within your EKS cluster. And then Guard Duty will create a finding for you, which will be visible within as well the account where this has been detected, but also if you set up a multi-account architecture in the central security account where you're aggregating all of your Guard Duty findings. Second category is malicious access. So this looks specifically for malicious IP addresses that there's communication with. It will look at Tor IP addresses where there's communication with, but also successful anonymous active access. So what you'll often see is first you'll see a policy finding, anonymous access granted, and then once somebody actually tries to access it, this will also be detected, and that will be a separate Guard Duty finding. The third category is suspicious behavior. So this is about execution in Kubernetes system pod. Whenever something's launched there that should not be launched there, Guard Duty will detect this and create a finding. But also containers with sensitive mounts, privileged containers, and suspicious process behavior that we might detect. And again, anything that's happening within your containers is a part of the EKS runtime, and this is an agent-based detection mechanism. So once you enable it, Guard Duty immediately begins to analyze these Kubernetes data sources and monitors them. So diving into the first part, the control plane API logging. So the control plane Kubernetes logging logs the audit logs that come out of your Kubernetes cluster, right? So these are ingested into Guard Duty, and this is anything related to the control plane, the part that runs on our side in our VPC. This gets ingested. It doesn't look at the actual worker nodes, right? It can't see within the worker nodes because that can only be done with an agent. Then the second part, which we launched later on, is the EKS runtime monitoring. So this is a new EKS workload security agent that's part of GuardDuty, and it adds individual Kubernetes container runtime activities. So this actually looks at file access processes that are running within your worker nodes. It will look at network connections, and it continuously monitors all of your EKS clusters across your organization with a few steps in the GuardDuty console. You can also include or exclude specific clusters. If you say, hey, I might not want to include my development clusters, for example, for cost purposes, you can exclude those based on specific tags. We also continuously develop this, so there will be new finding types available. We update those in our documentation, but you can also see them in the GuardDuty console that's available in the AWS Management Console. So you can detect malicious activity running in container workloads. So if we look at the slide here, you'll see a deployment pipeline with a regular sandbox, development, test, and production accounts. And this is to illustrate how this works, right? If you run clusters in different environments, again, best practice is to have that in different AWS accounts. You can forward the security findings to your security account. So how this generally works is your DevOps teams will operate in each of these workload accounts, but they might not have access to your security account. And then the security team that's responsible operates within the security account and can actually see the findings across all of the different environments that you're running. And again, you can run them everywhere, or you can decide on a per account basis where you would like to run them, right? That's up to you. If you look at the costing model for GuardDuty, it's all based on volume of data. It has to be analyzed. So it might make sense to also deploy it in your development and test environments, because generally the load on the number of data coming out of those is relatively low. But yeah, this is something that you can determine for yourself. I do want to point out there is a free trial available for Amazon GuardDuty, so you can try it out, and then it will show you on the costing page within the GuardDuty console what the price will be after the free trial. Now, when we take a look at the GuardDuty console, this is what a sample finding looks like, and obviously we've redacted a couple of fields here, but you'll see on the left side there's a privilege escalation being detected within the EKS cluster, and then on the right hand side it will show you the details of the finding. So it shows you the role, the resource type, in this case an EKS cluster. It will show you the actual access key of whoever executed this, and then it will give you the details about which cluster, which VPC is it running in, and also details about the workload, such as like the type, name, namespace it's running in. Second part of GuardDuty, what I want to point out is GuardDuty malware protection. So malware protection is another module that's available separate to the EKS protection. And malware protection is not agent-based, in contrary to what a lot of people think, but it's a fully managed malware detection service. So what does it do? It detects malware and shows them within GuardDuty as a finding. And what it can do, it scans containers running on EC2, either EKS or ECS or normal EC2 workloads. So it also is available for EKS, not for Fargate-based workloads, so only for EC2-based workloads. What it does in the background, once there is a GuardDuty finding about something suspicious going on, it will take a snapshot, and this is fully transparent to you as a customer, of the EBS volume of the EC2 instance, and then runs a malware scan against it, and then shows you within the console after the scan has finished if there's any malware detected. So looking at remediation of guard duty Kubernetes findings, there is a specific remediation guide available in our documentation, which will show you for the different finding types what we recommend on how to handle them. And on GitHub, there's also an EKS security best practices guide available for future reference. I think the top things here is make sure that your cluster API endpoint is private, and if public access is a must, then make sure you safe list specific IP addresses, right? So only make it available to, for example, the endpoint that you're using from your corporate network or your administrators. Review and revoke unnecessary anomalous access. This should have been anonymous access, but yeah, make sure that there's no anonymous access available to the cluster. And again, there is a guard duty finding for that, so follow up on that guard duty finding and take changes. Take reverse actions where appropriate, rotate credentials and secrets of impacted users, right? So if there's a guard duty finding that relates to a specific identity and access management key or set of keys, yeah, make sure that you rotate those credentials as soon as possible. Isolate pods, revoke pod credentials, and gather data for forensics. Again, central security logging account is a good example for gathering data for forensics, but also Amazon Detective can help you here. And also, if there's anything suspicious going on pods or nodes, terminate them, because I think this is the benefit of running containers. It's relatively easy to spin up a new one. And also make sure that you patch your container image and redeploy if you're not running Fargate or fully managed AMIs. And last but not least, automate wherever you can. So use the platform to run the automations. Okay, the next one I want to cover is Amazon Detective. So Amazon Detective, again, is integrated with Guard Duty. And can help you do your investigations whenever you do have a security issue detected. So first you have to activate Amazon Detective. In the background, it starts collecting data within your AWS account based on the sources you see here on the left side of the screen. And then from Security Hub or the Guard Duty console, you can start your investigation and start discovering what's the root cause of an issue. And to do that, what does it do? It creates a behavior graph. So within the Guard Duty console or within the Detective console, it will create this graph for you. It will show you one or more findings, right? As we mentioned before, for example, if you have a policy finding about anonymous access and then somebody actually accessed the cluster, it will try to group these Guard Duty findings all together and show you like, hey, there's multiple Guard Duty findings related to the same set of credentials, for example. So we think it might be related, and then it shows you all the different resources that are connected to it. So this can be the ENI, the IP address, the node it's running on, the cluster it's connected to, but also the image that that specific container is running from. And then the third service that I want to cover is Amazon Inspector. So Amazon Inspector is a vulnerability management solution. Again, you enable Amazon Inspector. It does automated workload discovery, so you don't have to go around and installing an agent or onboarding specific workloads onto Inspector. It also provides continual scanning, so it's not a solution where you have to schedule a daily or a weekly scan. There's a continual scanning automatically happening, and it's a fully managed service, so the vulnerability database associated with Inspector is managed by AWS, and ultimately this will give you near real-time results. Then what happens is there's findings generated. So for example, if there's a CVE vulnerability detected on a workload, it will show you that, and it will also try to contextualize the finding. And what does it mean is that the CVSS score assigned to a workload or to a finding is based on what type of workload is this. For example, if there's public internet access, the CVSS score will be bumped up. If it's running in a private subnet and there's no access inbound, outbound, then the score might be bumped down. Specifically looking at container images, which especially for EKS is important, is that Amazon Inspector supports integration with our container registry. So Marco already touched upon this in the beginning, ECR, a fully managed AWS container registry. And we have built integration with Amazon Inspector from within ECR. If you hold your images in ECR, Amazon Inspector will start scanning your image once it is pushed to the registry, and then any findings that might come out will be available in the Amazon Inspector console, and they will also be made available in Security Hub. Now, tying this all together, if we look at the flow, you'll see here Security Hub, which service we haven't covered, but Security Hub basically aggregates all of the findings that GuardDuty creates and is integrated with all of the other security services within AWS. So top left, you'll see there Amazon GuardDuty, Inspector, and a couple of other services that will push all of their findings into Security Hub. We also build integration with partner solutions that can push findings into Security Hub and a bunch of other AWS services. And then from Security Hub, there's a link that can immediately help you start your investigations. I think the last part of importance here, and this comes back to the automation that we've talked about, and how we encourage to follow up on things in a fully automated way, is it also has integration with Amazon Event Bridge, which will allow you to trigger a Lambda function, for example, as soon as there's a security finding of a specific type and category being generated. You can also use Security Hub to build integrations with third-party solutions at the end of it. So if you're using PagerDuty, for example, or Jira, there's integrations available with Security Hub to automatically alert you in a way that fits you. You can also even send Slack messages from Security Hub if there are any findings being pushed. And then if we look at the multi-account architecture, how that works, again, on the left hand, you have your workload account, right? So this is where you would run your EKS workloads. You have the AWS security services there, and all of the services that we talked about allow you to, behind the scenes, aggregate all those findings from your different workloads account into your security account. And then your security team can do their investigations and build the integration with tooling that you might have from the security account. Even automated remediations you can build in the security account that then assume a role in the workload account to actually remediate. So yeah, you'll see here that it's relatively integrated and yeah, allows you to both provide access for your DevOps teams in the workload account as well as for your security team. And Marco, just a quick check on time. Till what time do we have?
So you have about 3 minutes more.
Okay. What I'd like to do maybe is, because we're at the end of the presentation, I can quickly show in the GuardDuty console how it works if customers would want to enable this within their environment. So let me just open up my internet browser 1 second. And then we'll go into our security demo account. So now accessing the central security account within our demo environment. So this is not the management account, but it's the account where we have set up forwarding for all of our security services. And then I'm going to open up the GuardDuty console. So this is what the console looks like. This is the summary page, and then here you see the different protection plans, and then specific EKS protection. You can see EKS audit log and runtime configuration. And then if you go to settings, you'll see the different components here. And if you want to play around, you want to see what the finding looks like, you can hit the generate sample findings button here to generate sample findings within your account. And then to enable GuardDuty, so if you go into your management account, you go to the GuardDuty console, you can set the delegated administrator account, which we've done. And then this is in our delegated administrator account. And you can set it to auto-enable for any new AWS accounts that get created in your organization. But what you can also do for any existing account, you can select them here, and then you can say edit protection plans, and then enable both the EKS audit log as the runtime protection. In this case, it's already enabled, but yeah, you can also use this to enable or disable these specific components for any of the accounts. And then if we go to the findings page, we'll see here a number of findings that we have. See if we have a specific EKS finding. I don't see one, but let's open this one. Privilege escalation runtime, Docker socket accessed. And again, we'll see all the details here. All the related resources. We try to provide you with all the information required. And then here's the button that allows you to start your investigation with Detective. And we'll take you immediately to the Detective console, and we'll open the specific GuardDuty finding that we just saw. And then in the background, it's now loading that graph database that we talked about. Okay, and then it says us here, this finding is correlated to larger activity. So we can go to the finding group instead. And here we'll see that there's multiple findings in both the execution, privilege escalation, and other phase. And we'll see the visualization of all the GuardDuty findings that we found, CVEs that inspector picked up on, and then all the resources associated with it. List of all the involved findings, and then from here you can start your investigation by looking at log volumes, network volume levels, things like that. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now. Marco, I'll hand it back over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Koen, for that fantastic presentation. That was really insightful, and I also learned quite a few things. I'm using Kubernetes every day, and really have seen new connections between these services. So that's fantastic to see how AWS has evolved over time in bringing out really well-connected security services, also available for containerized applications. And one thing that you haven't mentioned yet, Koen, is that AWS offer that all as managed services at a very reasonable price. So you can have these services as well from security partners of AWS, but these services are usually enterprise grade and pretty expensive. So if you have worked with any of these large-scale enterprise security services and have received an offer there, you probably have looked very closely at your budget, how much it will cost. And with AWS, these services are all consumption-based. So that means if you don't ingest a lot of logs, you don't pay much. If you don't use the features, you don't pay much. So at a very reasonable price, you get really good security services and all with AWS support. And that's what I actually like. It's a very holistic offering that AWS has put together. And we are using many of these services together with our clients and have really got some great feedback and could even stop some attacks that GuardDuty or other services have prevented. Good. So I think with that, we are at the end of the webinar, but I don't want to miss to give you also 2 events that we are running pretty soon, and I put those into the chat. So we do have a Cilium-oriented, networking-oriented Kubernetes meetup and workshop. That's the first link that you see. So if you want to learn more about Cilium running on AWS, come join that workshop and also the AWS meetup. And if you want to be part of an immersion day where you will set up your own AWS EKS environment, press on the second link that we are hosting in November timeframe as well. So with that, I would like to close the webinar. Koen, thank you so much for your fantastic presentation. That was really cool. Now I actually want to give also the opportunity to the attendees. Any questions from the group? Please type into the chat if you got a question. That was a thanks from Patrick. Thank you, Patrick. Any other things? No questions, so I count to 5. Good. And if you need anything regarding EKS, container security stuff, don't forget to reach out to us at Copit here. And you can reach us under hello@copit.ch, and we gladly will help you set up anything Kubernetes or AWS related. Thank you so much. Wish you a great evening. And thanks again, everyone, for participating here. Thank you and goodbye.